Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Black is a nonprofit organization founded by Bishop Marcia Dinkins. I'm a cultural worker and narrative liaison and organizer for Black. My role is to gather the lived experiences of African American people in Appalachia, to amplify our narratives via podcasts, and to dispel the erasure of Black people in this region. Black people are, have been, and will continue to be Appalachians. Black puts forth our voices and makes the lived experiences of real people visible. Our hope is that this visibility will aid in our efforts to create policy changes that benefit the Black Appalachian community. Our guest for this episode is Mayor James H. Atkins. According to Mayor Atkins's campaign page, James J. H. Atkins is serving his 12th year on the Danville City Commission. Most folks who have lived here for a few years know JH as a man who enjoys listening, sharing ideas, and turning problems into solutions. A former teacher, principal, coach, and assistant superintendent, he uses the leadership skills he acquired as an educator to work toward making Danville and Boyle County a better place for all citizens. JH served in the Army and earned a degree from Kentucky State University. He followed up his work in secondary schools with teaching education courses and serving as diversity administrator at Center College. He now volunteers in area schools, doing social justice, diversity, and inclusion work. And most importantly, JH is a husband, father, and grandfather. His many roles, veteran, educator, commissioner, coach, husband, father, and grandfather, have taught him to communicate with people from all walks of life. That's why he is the people's mayor. Welcome to the Black Podcast, Mayor Atkins. Thank you for your time and willingness to share with our listeners.
Thank you for the invitation, ma'am.
Thank you so much for joining us. Where were you born and raised? And what is your relationship with your hometown?
Well, I was born in Fredericksburg, Virginia. My dad was in the United States Army serving at Camp AP Hill, which was outside of Fredericksburg. And he met my mom and they got married. And then upon his release from the military, they moved back to his hometown, which is Lexington, Kentucky. And so I've lived most of my childhood and part of my adult life in Lexington, Kentucky.
Awesome. So, what did you witness as you grew up in Lexington?
Well, I tell people in this short lifespan of mine, I have witnessed segregation, I've witnessed integration, and I've also now currently witnessing what I call resegregation or disintegration. So I attended all Black schools. I had my first non-Black classmate when I was a 11th grader, a junior at Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. Up until that time period, all of my, the entire population of the school was Black. My senior year, I attended Henry Clay High School, which was the year that Lexington completely integrated their schools, and that was the summer of 1967. So I graduated in the spring of 1968 from Henry Clay High School, which was a high school that was integrated. But throughout my life in Lexington, everything was Black. You know, I attended all Black schools, all Black churches. Dewey Street was an all Black neighborhood where the social life and the economic vitality for Blacks in Lexington was housed. So I went to the movie theaters and sat in the balcony, and I went to the 5 and dime stores and brought my chili dog and my cherry Coke and went outside in the park with my parents. Growing up, just thinking that my mom and dad and my grandmother especially, that they loved to have picnics out in the park. Didn't realize that it was against the law for us to partake of our food inside the restaurants and stuff.
Wow.
So really, Lexington was very segregated. Um, I was fortunate enough, however, though, in Lexington, live in a neighborhood on the south end of Lexington. And in that area, there was Irishtown, which was predominantly white. And there was Spiegel Hill, Spiegel Heights near, and Davis Bottom, and then the Hill. And all in those areas, Black and whites lived in those areas. Irishtown was predominantly white. The rest of those areas were predominantly Black, but I was able to have white and Black friends growing up, but we never did anything organized together. It was just things in the neighborhood. All of my recreational activities, my Boy Scouts, my church life, the parks that I attended, all those things growing up were segregated.
It's amazing to me that I think so many people try to create distance between a time when everything was segregated and now, like as if it happened 100 years ago, when it definitely happened within your lifetime, within my elder's lifetime. Like it's more recent than a lot of people are willing to come to terms with.
Yes, ma'am, because it's definitely was a reality because my parents, my family members were law-abiding citizens, so we did not do a lot to break down the barriers of segregation. As a young African-American male became a teenager, we began to read and hear about things that were very improper. And so my good buddy Russell Swaggart and I, we went to the movies together, and he came upstairs in the balcony and sat and got put out along with myself. And then at different times we went on the first floor and we both got put out. So we tried to do some things, and there were some very nonviolent things going on in Lexington. There were also some very violent things that were going on in Lexington during our lifetime. I tell everybody I'm 39 years old, and that's
I loved it.
well, that's my honor and my respect for Martin Luther King and for Malcolm X. Okay, because those guys were, to me, leaders that I respected growing up, and they were on two extremes of the movement. But I contend that as they talked about coming together and joining forces, that's what led to the death of both of them, is that they began to want to bring the movement together, and the movement became focused on the economics in this country, and that's what led to the assassination of both of those two young men that I still respect today.
So you were born in Virginia, you grew up in Lexington. How did you end up in Danville?
Well, I graduated from Kentucky State College in 1972. And that was the middle of the Vietnam War, but it was also the end of the Vietnam War. And that doesn't sound right, but here's what I mean. They were recruiting and drafting anybody and everybody they could into the military because they knew at the federal level they were going to eliminate the draft pretty soon. And so I got my official draft notice the Saturday morning before I graduated from Kentucky State College on a Sunday, which was Mother's Day Sunday. Okay, so I went in because I wanted to be law-abiding, and I got sent back home. And so I went to research a job. So I ended up taking a job after school had started that fall because I got sent back from the military. So I took a job in Danville. Then I got drafted 2 weeks later after I took the job and went back to the military, and then served 2 years of active duty, and came back to Danville after my 2 years of active duty to regain that job as a way of trying to find out what I really wanted to do. I had been admitted to several grad schools and had been admitted to law school. And during my military time period, I was able to substitute teach in Clarksville, Tennessee, and in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And I just realized I was going to be an educator. So I didn't need to go back and pursue the law degree and all that kind of stuff. So I took the job and ended up in Danville teaching the 7th and 8th grade history and civics and government and all that kind of good stuff. And been here ever since then.
That is awesome. So, what were your favorite and least favorite aspects of teaching?
My favorite aspect of teaching would be the students and my ability to impart knowledge to them, but also their ability to grasp the knowledge and then be able to, us together, put that knowledge into realistic life experiences. That'd be my favorite part, because I've always said to them that I'm going to teach you this stuff that are life survival skills. And if I stay in Danville long enough, or if you come back to live in Danville, we'll get a chance to put some of those things to practice. And that's what we've done. And that's why I'm involved as a public servant in local politics, because I always taught them about the importance of voting and being registered and doing community service and volunteering and being a servant leader, and all those things sort of go hand in hand with my career in Danville. I taught middle school, was an elementary school principal at a place called Tolliver Elementary School. It was a K through 5 school at that point. I was the first African American to be an administrator in charge of a school in Danville, Kentucky after integration. But a lot of things just kept me here because it was a small town in central Kentucky. Center College being a liberal arts school that's located here, that sort of, I think, made the community more willing and more open to people of diverse backgrounds. And so I was able to raise my 2 African American males in what I call this quote unquote safe environment in Danville, Kentucky.
I did not know that you were the first African American administrator to be in charge of a school in Danville. That is amazing.
Well, after integration, that's right, yeah.
Do you ever run into any of your former students?
Oh, yes, ma'am. And that's why I'm so successful at being a public servant, because, I taught them to be the importance of volunteerism, but also I modeled it. So I've been on just about every committee, every board in this town. So the parents and grandparents, and now my former students who are now adults, they all know me outside of the quote unquote political arena. And they know that I always have worked to do what's best for everybody that I've encountered in my life. So yes, a lot of my former students are adults now, they're professionals, and I embrace them and they embrace me. And to look at Vote Atkins to People's Mayor, you would find folks from middle school, high school, all the way to senior citizens working in my campaign. Lots of former students, lots of parents of former students, and lots of grandparents of former students all helped to mold that successful campaign.
What inspired you to run for mayor? Like, was it just a spur of the moment thing or something you had been thinking about for a while?
Well, I started out saying I was going to serve this town as a public servant, and I sort of convinced myself and some other folks who were supporters about getting involved in city government. So in 2010, I ran for the city commission. I've run 6 successful city commission races. 4 of the 6, I was the top vote getter. And so for 8 years, I've served the city as the mayor pro tem, the assistant, the vice mayor. And so probably about 5, 6 years ago, people began to say, but hey, you're really good at this. You're a man of your word. You need to consider bringing your leadership role to the top of the city and to run for the mayor's job. And I was working full time at Center College and said, well, that's maybe a little too much to do right now. So as I got closer to retirement, and then after I retired, I got more support, and I finally convinced myself, and my family said, hey, that's okay, go ahead and do it, and decided to run for mayor. So it's been a progression of support and encouragement from lots of people in the community. And also as an educator and as an observer, we see lots of examples, and we also see lots of non-examples about how things should be done. So I try to focus on a little bit of both of those, and that's how I sort of have shaped my lifestyle and my style of community service.
I love it. I love it. You worked at Center, and it is to my understanding that you were the diversity chair. Is that right?
Well, I was the director of diversity, and my
Okay.
director of diversity, I was an associate professor of education. And then I worked and dabbled in a little bit of the admissions work to try to help the center become a more diverse institution. So I had a triad of responsibilities at Center College.
That sounds like a big undertaking to take on, which like you did, and I respect and appreciate you for it. But what does it take to diversify an institution?
Well, first of all, the institution has to set that as a priority, a real priority. You know, some institutions talk about we want to diversify our student body, our faculty, our staff, and they put into their strategic plan, and that's the last time you hear anything about it. My role, though, was at Center was to say, okay, it's in the strategic plan. How do we keep this alive? How do we implement it? And then it's about putting your money where your mouth is. I can't recruit first generation college kids, regardless of what their racial or economic background is, if people aren't willing to assist them with financing an education that's expensive, but also that and making it affordable. So the faculty and staff and the administration, I was a member of the expanded senior staff, so I had a chance to speak to all the department chairs, division leaders, and all those folks about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then offered up opportunities for folks to come to campus and to provide training. You know, being the diversity officer, I got to live with all these folks, so I wanted to bring some outsiders in to do all of the diversity training, and my job was to sort of follow up, make sure we implemented some of the things that we were being trained on. So you can't do it all by yourself. So then I had a diversity council that was made up of faculty, staff, and students, and so the 15-member board sort of also helped keep those issues in front of the administration, the faculty, and staff. I went from a one-man office, and those who are connected with Center College now, they have a building that they call the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Building. They have 3 full-time employees, and they also have a full-time administrative assistant in that office. So that shows the growth of the importance of this to the college, but it also shows an importance and a growth to the students, the faculty, and staff who are employed in that college. So yes, it takes a little bit of everybody working towards that same goal. Center has done some great work. Center has not arrived, nor has any other institution arrived. It's an ongoing process. And once you feel like you've arrived and you stop your focus, then you will find that you will revert back to less than 5% or less than 1% of your student population being students of color.
So very true. Thank you. So for any of our audience members who might not understand how politics work on like a local level, could you walk us through what it takes to become a mayor, what that process looks like, and how long you will occupy the seat?
Well, I'm elected for a 4-year term, so God willing, I'll serve at least 4 years. But the process is really simple. You just have to be an adult, a young adult. I don't think there's much of an age requirement. And you file, and you get 3 or 4 people to sign your petition. You pay a $50 fee, and you can be off and running. Now, that's the simplicity of the answer. The more complicated part is that I've been trying to tell young folks that I stand on the shoulders of lots of folks who came before me, both Black and white, both male and female, and all other types of racial and ethnic folks. So it's about getting experience. Being a classroom teacher and being a history major and being a guy who taught government, I sort of knew the process, but you got to get out and create yourself a following. You've got to put some time in. A real public servant spends lots of his or her time volunteering. And my volunteering, my public service work, to me, is the things that I do to better my society, to better my community, that I'm not getting paid for. If all I ever did was just go to school, administer to that elementary school, didn't know anybody outside of school, then that's really not. People got to understand it. First of all, you're willing to listen. And then based on what you hear, you might be able to offer up some suggestions for improvement. I'm a Stephen Covey trained person. I tell everybody, I seek first to understand what your concerns, your issues are before I try to solve them for you. So a lot of people say, well, okay, this guy's homeless. We're going to do A, B, and C for him and they'll take care of him. Well, that may not be what he or she wants at all. So it's about gaining support, having I call it a ground roots base of supporters, and then do the right things, set some standards, stand up and speak up for some things that are right.
I am so happy that for as short of a time as I've been in Danville, I think it's an honor that I got to witness the first Black mayor in Danville's history. So I would like to ask you, how does it feel to make history twice, since you were the first African American administrator after integration, as well as the first Black mayor?
Well, again, the short answer is that it feels good. The real answer, though, is that it's not about me being the first. It's about me being qualified, about me being trained, about me having the skills, about me being an effective communicator, about me being a seek first to understand person. It's about all those things. Things are due when they're due in our history. A lot of things when it comes to people of color are past due or overdue. And so I could have lived my life and been a very successful person at this stage of my life without being the mayor. I think I convinced myself and was convinced by others to do this because things in this community need to flow and change like things every place else. And in spite of all the crazy things that are going on in our state and national politics, I'm a believer that they do not have to tweak to water themselves down to local politics. Local politics should be about people looking at the candidates and finding out who's best qualified and voting for that person, regardless of what they think my political party might be. City Commission and the mayor's job, they're all nonpartisan positions. So I've tried to say, Atkins, what political party do you represent? What do you stand for? And so that slogan, the people's mayor, I've always said, if elected, I'm going to serve and represent everybody. And that's what I've been able to at least try to do. There are a lot of young people of color, male and female, Black, white, Hispanic, Latino, and all other persuasions that need to be able to see a person of color in leadership positions throughout this community, not just in city government, not just in the school system, because sometimes the school system is the easy place to find it, but they need to see them in all areas of our life, and Center College included.
That representation is so important. Growing up, I could count how many people in positions of leadership in the government and in my schools. I could count that on my hand. And I'm delighted that I see it more and more as I get older. But I so wish I could have seen it when I was younger. So I'm so glad that you get to be that representation for so many young people in Danville, especially young people of color.
I'm just one person. There are 6,000 K through 12 students in this community. And I always committed myself to go any place, anywhere where I could get in front of a class of 24 kids and say, hey, I got something important to tell you, to teach you. And I would do that any place and every place I was invited to go. And the reason was that people and students of color need to see me, but more importantly to me, white students, majority students need to see that there's an educated Black person out there in a highly skilled position, because they might leave Danville or they might leave the schools and find that, oh, they got to come talk to me, a person of color. So it's about the knowledge, the experience, the exposure for all of our kids. Sure, it's going to benefit students of color, but it's going to benefit all kids in the long run.
Yes, thank you. So to kind of bounce off of that, I would like to hear what community means to you.
Well, the local community versus the state community versus the national community, I represent, or I look towards all levels. Presently, as the mayor, though, I'm trying to focus on the local community. And the local community, since I'm the mayor of Danville, Kentucky, which is one of 3 cities in Boyle County, Kentucky, one of the smallest counties in the state of Kentucky, is that I believe strongly that whatever happens in Danville, the seat of Boyle County, affects the citizens of Perryville, Kentucky, and Junction City, and Danville, and everyone in Boyle County. So my local reach has to be throughout the entire county. If it's good for the city, it's good for the county. If it's good for the county, it ought to be good for the city. So it's important that I reach out and I have impact in all throughout the entire local area, which I consider to be the city and the county.
Thank you. 2-part question. What do you love about your hometown, which we're going to say Lexington because that's where you were raised, just for the sake of the podcast? What do you love about Lexington, and what do you love about Danville, and what do you wish could be different for both?
Well, I love about Danville and Lexington is the educational opportunities for all of our kids. And that's K through 16, K through 18, whatever. Now, there are just lots and lots and lots of educational opportunities for all the kids. And I'm not just talking about going to college. You know, we got trade schools and business schools, got all kinds of educational opportunities. And there's lots and lots and lots of scholarship money in Lexington, Fayette County, as well as in Danville, Boyle County, Kentucky, that a lot of people are not taking advantage of. Also, I'd like the cultural experiences that are available in Lexington as well as in Danville. You know, the Norton Center, you got the Opera House in Lexington, you got the UK Performing Arts, you know, we got all kinds of things where I can get my children, or I can get our children exposed to cultural events, the arts in particular. And there are a lot of scholarship opportunities available just to attend some of those things. And then the third thing I like about both of them is the recreational opportunities, is that there are, you know, trails and bikes and all types of recreational activities in both the large city of Lexington and the large city of Danville. Yeah, notice I put both of them together. Yeah, the things I don't like about them are the same things I don't like about both of them again. We have homelessness in both of those areas. We have drug abuse. We have domestic violence. We have racism and discrimination. We have all those isms that mankind has created to put our brothers and sisters down. And so both of those cities and counties have some of the same kinds of issues. And I guess the other one is homelessness has many different definitions to it. Drug abuse has many different definitions to it as well. But the other thing is we have maybe I should say a food scarcity. When there's not enough food going home with my K-5 kids to keep them fed over the weekend, it has taken Lexington a good little while to recognize and accept the fact that she has those types of issues. And it's taken Danville, Boyle County, Kentucky a good while to recognize that she has some of those issues that need to be worked on.
Mm-hmm. Those are definitely prevalent issues. It amazes me like how many places that reaches. Just growing up, I was one of the food insecure students who had to take the backpacks home full of food to like feed my family or like help supplement
Yes.
what was being brought in. And
Yeah.
that is so prevalent in areas where the population is large, but the resources aren't enough. I know UK has a pantry, but I'm not sure if that pantry is open to everyone in the community or just UK students.
Yeah. Well, in Lexington, it was called God's Pantry, which is pretty open to just about everyone in the community. A lot of the churches, and again, I'm trying to put Lexington and Danville together because we communicate, do some of the same things. There is a community-wide food bank here in Danville and God's Pantry in Lexington, but there are a lot of other churches and nonprofits that do some of the exact same thing. You mentioned the backpack program, and that sort of put a smile on my face because I said, hey, if I had named what we were doing 30 years ago at Tolliver Elementary School, we would have created the backpack program because we were doing the exact same thing, but we didn't identify a name for it. We tried to keep it quiet. You know, we wanted to have our kids to receive what they needed, but not to let the kids not let everybody else know what we were doing. But you're right; those types of things are very much needed, and they need to continue to grow. And what we do at the local level will impact the success of all the folks in our community. I try to do things. I try to get things accomplished without creating drama. Now, if I tell you no, I'm going to tell you no with a smile on my face and be just as polite and nice and courteous to you as I can. I can tell you no and I can cuss you out. I don't do that though. It just so I think I get more done because I try to be polite and courteous and respectful to everybody that I encounter. Even the guy that tells me to sit down and shut up and go over in the corner, we don't value your opinion. I'm still going to say yes, sir, or no, sir, to that person, but I'm still going to keep on trying to get accomplished what my goal is. If somebody said that James Atkins stood up and fussed and cussed at somebody in a meeting, you just say, whoop, nope, that's not true. Never has happened, never is going to happen. Now, I've done some of that internally where you can look at my face and say, boy, Atkins is really giving that guy a hard time, but he's not going to do it out loud. I want to be able to say we disagree, but we do not have to be disagreeable. And when I vote for you, I'm going to do what I vote for. And if I vote against you, then you know where I stand. I'm not going to support you. Not going to do it.
We are winding down in our time together. I appreciate you for joining us. And
Okay.
I would love to know if you have any nuggets of wisdom to leave with our listeners.
Well, you have to respect yourself before you can respect others. I think we need to do more and more and more listening to each other. Always try to find the 1+1 = 3, not just 2. Be respectful at all times. Never underestimate the value of education. And I'm not saying just, high school and college. I'm saying all kinds of education because some of the best educational lessons I've had in this short span of my life have been outside of the schoolhouse. But they're great lessons to have.
Thank you so much, Mayor Atkins. My last question for you: how can our listeners reach you or keep up with what you're doing as mayor of Danville?
Oh, great. Well, first of all, the city of Danville has a Facebook page and it has a website. And then I have my own Facebook page, Atkins, Atkins, number 4, Mayor, Mayor, Atkins for Mayor. And I'm probably just going to have my Facebook page turned over to, it's just going to say Atkins, the people's mayor, not vote for me because the voting's over with now.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I am honored to host you. The podcast is honored to have you. And I cannot wait to share with everyone your story. Thank you for contributing.